Today we're talking about the RTX 5060, whether it's a good buy today in 2025 if you're both gaming and making content. Now, you've probably seen all kinds of takes on this GPU already, with some people saying the 8GB is totally fine, 8GB VRAM by the way, others saying it's completely dead in 2025. Well, for me, it's somewhere in the middle and it's just okay to buy it. So let's break it all down. First off, let's talk about gaming. The RTX 5060 8GB VRAM performs pretty much exactly where you'd expect it to. It's a true 1080p card if you're mostly playing competitive esports game and playing AAA games on the side. So if you're playing like Valorant, Apex Legends, Fortnite, and any other competitive games, this GPU is fantastic for 1080p. Since you're gonna get 144 FPS and above in this max settings, no problems. In fact, even in modern AAA games like Cyberpunk 2077, Starfield, Alan Wake 2, the 5060 can still hold on its own. But here's where the 8GB starts to show its limits. At ultra settings with ray tracings, you're gonna run into startlers and some VRAM bottlenecks, especially at 1440p and beyond. If you dial the settings down to high or medium though, most games are still very playable at 1080p. So if you're a casual or a budget gamer, or you're sticking to 1080p and you don't have money to buy a new monitor anyways for those 4K or 2K settings, it's okay. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's actually about the same performance of a 4060 Ti with only 8GB VRAM. It's not impressive, but it's cheaper than the 4060 Ti when it launched. But most people are not gonna buy Nvidia because they're just gaming. If you're just gaming, go buy an AMD. They have better prices with better VRAMs and bigger VRAMs for a pricing like this. You're gonna buy an Nvidia if you want to create content. If you're photo editing, Photoshop, Lightroom, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, the 8GB is more than enough for content creation for 1080p projects. Those kind of apps don't really need a ton of VRAM as long as you're just creating content, your own content, or you're not like producing a movie wherein it's like 3 hours worth of edits. If you're gonna edit like around 10 to 30 minutes, 8GB VRAM is gonna be fine, especially if you don't use that many effects. And Nvidia's drivers and studio software still give it a pretty smooth experience. I tried AMD many times for editing software and I usually find my PC crashing. If not crashing, I get black screen or it's really not smooth. It has some bit of a lag. Some people say it's already getting better. They're even using it for streaming. Even PewDiePie moved to AMD since he's not streaming a lot and editing a lot. But still, Nvidia provides smoother experience in those fields. I actually used the 1050 Ti before and it still can edit. Unlike the RX 580 and I even tried RX 6600, I rather have a 1060 because of the NVENC and the driver compatibility. It's where Nvidia shines. But the second you move up to 4K editing, the 8GB VRAM can be a real limitation. Especially if you're editing like an hour worth of footage and there's a lot of effects. You'll see slowdowns, and if your CPU is not that powerful enough, everything will just bottleneck and your software might crash. You're gonna see dropped frames on the timeline, slow render previews, longer export times, especially with heavier effects, transitions, and especially color grading. And if you're doing things like 4K multicam or using big raw video files, I recommend you to buy at least a 4070 for those, or a 5070 for those. So again, for light content creation at 1080p, it's okay. But for serious 4K video editing, or if your career is based on editing videos, you're better off with a 4070 and above, or 5070 and above. The big question though is future proofing. 8GB of VRAM in 2025 is really borderline. It's like having a 4GB VRAM way back 2016. Remember those times? But games were better optimized back then, so it really wasn't that much of a problem back then. But now almost every game is unoptimized, and they really eat a lot of VRAM, just like the recent Monster Hunter that was released. If you play Monster Hunter Wilds in an 8GB VRAM and you play on ultra settings, you'll see a lot of textures missing. It's like PS1 polygon textures that pops up because the VRAM just can't have that much space for the texture loading in. So if you have like 8GB VRAM like here on the 5060, I would recommend at least playing on medium, or you can try high if you want, or playing on mixed settings between those two. Right now you can make it work, especially if you're willing to tweak the settings. But in a year or two, I think we're gonna see more and more modern games needing 12GB or more, even at 1080p. So what does this mean? This means this 5060 will be good for you for around just 3 years. So if you're buying a GPU and you want to keep it for more than 3 years and still play at high settings, I think the 5060 8GB is very risky. I would still recommend you to buy a 4070 and above. I won't recommend you the 5060 Ti or the 4060 Ti because in terms of power, the 70 series really shows a big difference than those 60 series or 60 Ti series. But still, if you need something affordable right now and you mostly game at 1080p, edit 1080p, and your whole career is not based on video editing, 4K files, or complex camera systems, it will do the job. Now let's talk about the price. If you can find the 5060 at $250 to $300, it's a decent buy, though it's not an amazing value. The market right now, if we really like to phrase it in one sentence, is there are no bad GPUs but really bad prices. If the 5060 was released for around $200, then it will be a good buy. It's really a good buy, or even lesser than that. Remember those days when you can buy a 1050 Ti for $139? Those were the times. At that time, you can buy a 1080 Ti for around $700. $700 for a flagship graphic card. Now your $750 is only for a 5070 Ti. It's not even the most flagship card that you can get. So if you can buy the RTX 5060 around $250 to $300, do so. But if it creeps closer to a $350 mark, you're better off getting a 4060 Ti 16GB if you see one on sale, or an RX 7700 XT, or even a used RTX 3080 if you can find a good one. So should you buy the RTX 5060 8GB? Well, to summarize it, if you're a 1080p gamer and a casual content creator on a tight budget, it's okay. Especially if you're creating content or streaming old games, retro games, or 2016ish or 2020 games and not the new ones, the 5060 can do those. If you're gonna stream newer games, I would advise you at least to have a 5070 for those. But if you want something that will last longer or do serious 4K video work, save for something better like the 5070. But either way, be realistic about your needs. Don't buy into the hype and don't expect miracles from an 8GB VRAM in 2025. Stick to medium to high settings, guys. Anyway, that's it for this one. Let me know what you think of the 5060, and if you bought it, comment it below so we know what type of games you can play perfectly with it. And if you're considering one or skipping it, let me know in the comments too. Hit like if this helped, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers!